the LGBTQ issue or concern, and we are going to address it from 3 different lenses. Okay, one is, and that's going to be the first one, is I want to explain to you from I want to explain to you the terms, if you will, coming from a psychology background, because I'm a therapist myself. And then hopefully Sheikh Ahmed Bello will arrive on the scene soon. And then he is supposed to talk about the Islamic view or the Islamic ideas and principles around this particular issue. And then we have Sister Shaista, who is going to address how do we handle this issue in the educational circles, okay, in the US. So this is the rough outline for, and then we're going to have some time, inshallah, for questions and answers, bi'iznillah, okay? So now one of the major intersection points is within the schools, and Sister Shaista is going to talk to us about one way that parents have been really dealing with this issue. So go ahead, please, Sister Shaista, thank you.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I don't like speaking after these two. Mashallah, mashallah, jazakumullah khairan for everything. So they asked me to talk about 2 things. One is considering homeschooling as an alternative to public school. And the second is, if my child is in public school, if that's my only option, what can I do? What are some measures I can take? And the time is very short, but I actually want to make my talk a little bit shorter because I think I'm much more interested in the questions in the audience. So the first thing I want to do, and I've been hearing this from the previous speakers, is we have to question the paradigm. Like, we really have to question the paradigm. The school system, the public school system, only has as much power over your children as you give it. That's a fact. I have 3 kids that I'm homeschooling, and usually people want to know, so what's the status? Alhamdulillah, they're all on track, they're all doing well academically, none of them are too weird, and most of the time, I mean, they're all teenagers, and we have a 4th teenager. We recently took in a foster youth who aged out of the system, mashallah. She's a Muslim, young Muslim lady. Make offer, she's a beautiful, beautiful, elegant young lady, mashallah. So, and yes, I'm at the grocery store every day. For teenagers, what do you think? What do you think I'm doing every day? Feeding eggs, exactly. But what I want you to do is I want you to think about the power you have as a parent, and don't let the public school system take this from you, because you have the power to homeschool in California. And homeschooling is a misnomer. People think, oh, homeschooling, that means I'm going to take the curriculum that they have at school, I'm going to sit with my kid at the dining table 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, we're going to do text. No. In California, homeschooling is, I don't want to do public school, I don't want to do private school, everything else is homeschool. Can I see a show of hands? How many people here are homeschooling? Just, let's have a show of hands. It's much more common than you think. I just went in Orange County just a few months back. We had the Muslim homeschoolers picnic. We had 300 people show up. MashaAllah, 300 people just showed up, and it was a very informal event. So, and homeschooling is not sitting at the dining table. Homeschooling is what you want to make of it. Do you want your children to be Hafiz of Quran? So you focus on your hifz. And then you do the science and the math also. Do you want to focus on their mastery of the Arabic language? You focus on that. And you have these rights. You can do these things. And I think that if you in the homeschooling community, the vast majority of homeschoolers in this country are Christians. It's a Christian majority country. But what I have found is that we have much more as Muslims in this society, because we're not just limited to just rejecting the public school system. We have a whole different paradigm. We have our Prophet, we have Islam. Can you imagine how hard it is to raise children in this society without Islam? I mean, it's already jihad. How do people do it without Islam to guide them? And we have, as I've seen with so many social issues in this society, that if we turn to our deen, we can find the answers there. And what I would ask you is this: show me where in the Sunnah we're taught to take our 8-year-old, our 9-year-old child, send them to a separate physical space, put them in a classroom behind a desk for several hours a day to be taught what to think and how to think by a complete stranger who most probably is not Muslim and also probably doesn't even fear God. As Muslims, we really value knowledge and education, but what I want to point out to you is don't confuse the two. Public school and seeking knowledge are not the same thing. If you know your Islamic history, you know that the world's oldest university was founded by Fatima al-Fihri in Morocco, almost 1,000 years ago, more than 1,000 years ago. She had the idea, this is the first university in the world. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Anybody from anywhere can come to study and pursue knowledge. But that's not the same as the public school system. The public school system, we feel like it's been around forever. It really hasn't. It's not more than about 100 years old. And it came about as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Before that, in America, there was the local schoolhouse. The parents had control. The goals of the local schoolhouse before mandatory public schooling was piety, self-reliance, entrepreneurship, good manners, and functional literacy. When they established the first mandatory public schools, if you Google it, you'll find, it was in Boston, it was X year, whatever. What they won't tell you is that those kids were taken under armed guard from their parents. Because the parents, these are American Christians, 100-some years ago, they didn't want to cede control over the education of their children to strangers. So yes, when we see what's being taught in the curriculum, when we see what's being imposed on our children, it's imposed. There's no surprise here. And by the way, if you think I'm not making this up, this is all documented. The intent of the public school system as a result of the Industrial Revolution was to produce employees, laborers. And I'm going to read you a quote from Woodrow Wilson. This is when he was a president of the United States. Before that, he was president of Princeton University. He was addressing a body of teachers in New York City in the year 1909. This is what he said. We want one class of persons to have a liberal education, and we want another class of persons, a very much larger class, to forego the privileges of a liberal education and fit themselves to perform specific, difficult, manual tasks. Do you want that for your kid? I don't want that for my kid. I took them out. Also, I don't understand why I would give my child, if I take my car to the mechanic and the mechanic doesn't do what he's supposed to do, I can go after him. If I have a contractor come and repair my home and they don't do a good job, I can go. But if my child doesn't get a proper education, what's my recourse? Don't they just move him up to the next grade? And that's not very confidence inspiring, especially when you consider where do we stand in the world. The Pew Foundation found in 2018, we rank in science in the world, number 24, math, number 38. So they want power over my child. And if you're part of the school system and if you don't send your kid in and there's truancy laws, there's all kinds of things. Let's hold the questions till the end, please. We have plenty of money to send to apartheid regimes, but that's another lecture. Now, one of the ironies here is that, yes, I'm a homeschool parent who also happens to be an attorney. But I spend a lot of time in public schools because I'm one of the speakers with the Muslim Speakers Network. It's a project of the Shura Council. So I go to schools all over Orange County, even here in the Inland Empire, Los Angeles, and I see how the teachers treat the children, the students. We mostly focus on middle schools. And it's really disheartening to see the public humiliation right in front of me. And for the kids who are in public schools, you probably know what I'm talking about. I went to public school. Just this past Monday, we got a request for presentations on Islam in a middle school in Newport Beach. That's not a poor neighborhood. We covered the whole 7th grade. We gave presentations on Islam to the whole 7th grade. Alhamdulillah, they loved it, they were mesmerized. But for one of the periods, this was in their school library. They wanted 2 classrooms at the same time. So they brought them into the library. It's a beautiful building and they're bringing everybody in and I'm excited to be there. The kids are coming in. Oh, we have a guest speaker, we have a guest speaker. Okay, so one young lady, she comes, she's sitting up here in the front. Everybody's ready. I'm about to start this presentation. A teacher from the back of the room yells out her name. You're breaking the rules. Calls out her name and says, you're breaking the rules. She denied. She says, no, I'm not. The teacher, in front of everybody and in front of me, you're breaking the rules. Made that young lady stand up, march down the aisle, all the way to the back. What was her crime? She had gum in her mouth. Where in our sunnah do we publicly humiliate our children? Why would I subject my child? And don't think for a second, oh, I'm in a good school district, because I go to Irvine, I go to Pasadena, and there's no difference. I'm sorry. So another thing I want you to consider is that the public school system is not going to give us the thinkers we need, the challenges we have. People are not just questioning gender. We've got climate change. We have huge problems. The UN estimated, what they say, that our population is going to be 9.7 billion in 2050. How are we going to handle these problems? And you know how they're talking about in terms of climate change, they're talking about, 1.5 degrees and then 2.0 degrees Fahrenheit, elevated temperature. Now you're facing catastrophic consequences. Do you know that just happened this past Friday? It was just a few hours where the world temperature went above 2 degrees. Drones who were having facts drilled into their head and who are being, taught by a very standard robotic, being trained to be employees, trained to be laborers. How are they going to solve these problems? Homeschooling has given me the opportunity to let my children pursue their passions. My oldest, she loves reading. She has a book club she does for young Muslims. My second, she's really into climate change on a first name basis with city council members in our area. First name basis, 15 years old. And in a few weeks, she's going to be, they're flying her up, she's going to be a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the EPA on behalf of minors with regard to climate change. These kids, if they have the chance, if they can follow their passions, they can do it. Please give them the opportunity. And something else is that when you homeschool your child, you can instill in them the value that at the end of the day, it's not about the grades. What am I going to do with, if you become the best surgeon in the world and you don't value waking up for Fajr? I tell my kids, I don't need your 4.7 GPA. I don't need your great accomplishments. At the end of the day, my husband and I, we want our children to be people who want to please Allah. That's the goal. They're not going to get that in public school. You can do it in spite of it, but that's not the objective. So, what if somehow you don't have an option to homeschool? I understand. I'm an attorney for low-income people, and people have hard lives. I get it. And homeschooling is not an option for everyone. I will tell you though, it's not as hard as you think. And there is a lecture tomorrow. There's a Homeschool 101 lecture tomorrow. I don't know who's doing it, but if you check on the program, you can find it. And I made a resource sheet up here. I made a couple copies up here for it if you're interested in homeschooling. But what if you don't have any options? I have a couple things to say. The first one is that understand AB 1078. What that did, and I'm not an education attorney, I do civil defense, but I will tell you that my reading of it is it's basically punishing local school districts for resisting the gender identity curriculum. And the governor signed it just, I think about a month or two ago, and it didn't get signed into law the normal way. He signed it as an emergency measure, which means it doesn't even wait until January 2024. It's already there. And what I want you to understand is, it's not an opt-out curriculum. It's not like back in the day when I was in school and sex ed came up and parents had the option, oh, I'm gonna have my kids sit in the library for a couple days. This is K through 12. It's in the curriculum, you cannot opt out. Everything that Noha was talking about up here, our kids are being taught. If we give that power over to someone else to do. So if my child is in public school, and this is the only option I have, I really thought about this. I thought about this long and hard. Number one, I'm gonna be besties with that teacher. I'm gonna be best friends with this teacher. I'm there for this teacher. I'm gonna be, if I can volunteer in the classroom, I'm gonna do that. If I can donate supplies, if I can be a part of this, this classroom, that way I know everything that's going on in that classroom. I get to know the teacher, and I'm not just a parent who shows up to complain because I don't like what the homework assignment said. I'm gonna be a part of my child's education within this classroom. Also, I'm gonna immerse my child. You're all here at the Mass Convention. Hopefully your children are too. Hopefully they're attending some of these lectures and they're learning and they're absorbing. I'm gonna immerse my child in Islamic culture as much as I can. In addition, I'm gonna spend a lot of time with my child, like a lot. And I don't mean spending time with my child to lecture them, or here I have this talk I want you to listen. No. I'm talking about quality time and listening to them. So what's going on in school? I should know my kids' friends. I should know what's hurting them, what's harming them, what they're stressed about, what they're worried about, what's going really well for them. Oh, you're struggling with this assignment? Let's do it together. And I should also give them the language that they need when they're in school. Because I heard a lot here about we have to be respectful. Yes, they have to be respectful. I teach my children, you always be gentle with people. You be firm, you know who you are, but you be gentle. And if their position is to be my true, authentic self, I have to express my sexual identity to its fullest. You, to be your true, authentic self, surrender to God. To be my true, authentic self, I surrender to God. That's from a Yaqeen article, by the way, and you can find it on their website. They have a nice paper and it's very powerful. Give your child the language. Tell them we don't hate people. We love people, we're respectful, we're kind. But give them the tools that they need. Finally, this is the last thing I'll say and I'll close, is that our children didn't ask to be born into a society that has so much confusion and has so many problems. They didn't ask to be born into a society with all the everything, but they are our amana. And if you feel like it's jihad, if you're struggling, we're all struggling. If you feel like it's jihad, it's because it is jihad. But say, alhamdulillah, that I have Islam. Alhamdulillah, I have the example of the Prophet, ﷺ, and I have this wonderful deen, and may Allah help us and guide us in the struggle that we're all facing. Thank you.